It's
And
perfect
we're
time.
live. I mean, it's keeping, like it would be against some people's expectations on my friend list for me to be on time. Like, they would be confused. So, give that little late entry. So, hi everyone who's popping on. I'm just going to give people a couple moments to like get it together and come on and join us. And I'm going to pop into Facebook right now and just go to my feed and tag you so that we can be as many places as possible. Right now we're live on on Facebook, on the Self-Care is My Job page, and on YouTube. So, again, just trying to get us out of as many places as possible. Whitney, how are you? How is your day gone so far? How's everything?
Things are good right now. To be honest, like it was kind of a tough weekend. I could feel myself letting go of a lot. I had a good cry yesterday,
Mm.
and every Monday morning I have that time blocked off for self-care. So I really took time to reflect on what was happening within me, what am I feeling, what can I let go of, and so right now I'm in a good place.
That's wonderful because you actually made the time for that. And it's
Hmm.
like so freaking important to ensure that you have that. And I think it's important to note too, like, self care Sunday, it's like all, promoted. And granted, like I do most of my episodes on Sunday for that reason, right? But it doesn't have to be on a Sunday and it
Hmm.
doesn't have to be any day. It doesn't have to be an hour-long process. It doesn't have to be a 3-hour-long process. It doesn't have to cost you anything. It's like, okay, like what works for you? So I think that just, popped up for me that it's like, so it's great that you have that cultivated for Monday, especially given the fact that most people are like, oh, Monday, it's like, again, we're like kind of sold that. And then you like take
Hmm.
it on as like something almost like you're supposed to do. It's like, no, actually, Monday could be friggin' great if you decide that it's great.
Hallelujah. Yeah.
It's crazy. Um, so welcome. Now that we've given, everybody a couple minutes, welcome and thank you so much for joining me. This is Whitney Warmka. Am I pronouncing it right? I just want to make
Yes.
sure. Okay. Whitney Warmka is joining us, and Whitney has a lot of offerings. Okay. So she's going to tell us a little bit about what she does, but she's in the Reiki world. She offers tapping as a part of her emotional freedom techniques, which is really great. And we have not discussed that on this show yet. And I know that
Ooh.
that's something that, yeah, we haven't gotten too much into that as far as like a self care practice. So I think it's important, that'll be great to sort of offer that sort of and define and explain all of this good stuff to the viewers, to the people who are listening or now or later. Um, but welcome. So how are you? I love that you're joining me. I had a great workshop with Whitney a few weeks ago, which we'll talk about, where we discussed actually the specific topic was about children children of addicts, children of either alcoholics or addicts or grew up in a dysfunctional environment pertaining to that, which is my background. So it
Mhm.
was something where I was like, that is a really good way for me to connect with you because I was already kind of like, I want to get to know this woman. And we had such an amazing, heartfelt, authentic, beautiful conversation about our pasts. And it's just like, I think it's great that we're here together because, we barely knew each other before that evening. And then it's just like feels good sometimes to just, open up, be vulnerable with somebody, practice how it feels to do that and really talk about the things that sometimes we don't make time to vocalize. So I thank you again for offering me that, that space to do that. And that's how we connected. That's how we know each other. So now that we've laid that out, I want to give you an opportunity to tell us about yourself. Um, I would love to know, who are you? Who's Whitney? Where are you from? What are you doing? And how did you get here? Like, how did this happen for you?
Yeah. Well, thank you. I'm so excited to be here. And yeah, ever since we've connected, everything that I see you put out resonates with me so deeply because my journey really started with self-care, wondering how can I take better care of myself when I became a mom? Because before becoming a mom, I was not so good at taking care of myself. I shoved everything down. I avoided, I numbed. I could not connect to myself. And so learning how to take care of myself and what self-care actually means, not just getting your nails done or doing these things that society says is self-care, but this everyday connecting to myself and developing that spiritual connection has been so powerful for me. It's been the main theme throughout my journey.
Yeah.
So I'm from southern Minnesota, a rural community. I'm a single mom to a beautiful 4-year-old. And we also live with my mom, who I'm a caregiver for. She has multiple sclerosis. And so the three of us live together, and it's this beautiful setting where we really learn from each other and grow with each other. And it's given me the ability to really focus on this work, getting my certifications in emotional freedom techniques and becoming a Reiki Master teacher. I've been so fortunate to expand in so many ways and learning about energy and emotions and how to share this information with the world, because it's so important for our well-being to understand energy and emotions.
Yeah. Seriously. I think that even, just connecting with what you were saying about your sort of your journey, um, I'm not even quite sure that I made the connection when I first started prioritizing my own self-care, the same thing, that how much of a spiritual practice this was going to be. And so it's like sometimes it takes a few tries to figure out what it is that you really need, right? So we start doing little things like working out or doing yoga, and yoga is a much bigger, depending on what ways you're incorporating it and what you're getting out of it, right? We start to do these little things, and then we find out by prioritizing ourselves and allowing that space and time for ourselves what we really need. And then maybe it switches after that, right? So I had a similar experience where it was like, oh no, like there are so many things that I want to go deeper with. And I think that for so long, I stopped myself from doing that sort of spiritual work where I'm just like really asking myself these questions and addressing these things that had sort of plagued me for a while. Because a lot of the belief systems that were fed to me over time, that doing things like that is kind of a waste of time, or it's like, for like overly sensitive people, and it's just or finding, ways to slow down and time to rest is laziness, like things like this, these belief systems that wouldn't really allow me to get to the self-care that I really needed. But what's the beautiful thing, I think, and of course I always preach about this, the beautiful thing about self-care is it doesn't really matter what it is, it matters what it does for you. So even if you start somewhere and you start to send those messages to your body, mind, and spirit about how important you are to you, then eventually you're going to get to what you really need, and you just kind of got to let it flow. And so that really resonated with me, the fact that this, it absolutely became a very spiritual practice for me from a perspective of like connection to self, like remembering, coming home to yourself. Um, we have to do that. We have to remember, because we have to release or let go of a lot of systems and beliefs and stories that just swirl around our, existence and kind of block us from really knowing ourselves anymore. Like we just kind of embody all these like, personalities and personas and like ideas, um that of which the people around you, are in. So yeah, let me know if that resonates with you at all, obviously. And then, like, I would love to know also how you got, how, for example, you got into tapping, for, like how that was introduced to you. Because that's obviously, I'll sit here all day and talk about yoga, meditation, and breath work. And that's why I have this show and why I have my group, is like, okay, but there's so much more that I am not going to say one thing is elevated over the other. That's not for me to say, because it's literally all out there for everyone to grab when they're ready for it. So I think it's important to note, like, well, what did it for you? Like what drew you in, kind of thing.
Yeah. A lot of what you said resonated. It's an evolution. You have to start connecting in, see what you like, see what you don't like, and give yourself permission to let it look however you want. You don't have to follow everybody else's rules and frameworks and all of this stuff. It's what feels good to me? What do I need right now? How can I move through this, and just taking care of yourself. And that spiritual connection, I used to believe that it was something I was seeking outside of me, that God was this thing out there I was trying to get out there, and that didn't resonate with me at all. So then I threw spirituality and religion away completely.
Mm.
And then when I started taking care of myself, I'm like, oh, this is spirituality going within me. So that was huge.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things that I love about tapping, is it allows you to go in. It's almost like a meditation where you can really access the truth of who you are and identify the things that are limiting you, the things that are running in the background that you're not even aware of, those beliefs and those memories, and all of that stuff, all those stories that you're telling yourself.
Mm.
So I found tapping last year. I had committed to being completely sober for 90 days. And at the beginning of that, I was going through a lot of emotions. I was releasing the things that I was numbing, because I had started drinking more than I normally did. Like, I've never been much of a drinker, but I started drinking 3 or 4 times a week. And I'm like, what am I doing?
Mm.
So I made that commitment to myself, and I just happened to come across tapping. And so I started, and I'm like, holy shit, this works. This lets
Mm.
me move really quickly. It helps me shift really quickly. And I just fell in love. I knew it was for me. I followed the calling. There was a certification program offered by Jackie McDonald, and my soul was just screaming, yes, this is for me. This is for me. And so that's how I fell in love with it. And now it is my tool of choice. I use it just about every single day, for both to like amplify the good energy, but also when I'm feeling low, to help me move through that to get to the good energy. It's
Mm.
so versatile and easy to use.
That's amazing. So there's something that you said that really resonated with me. Like, you had to, or you were called to it. It was screaming your name, right? Like,
Mhm.
you it was screaming at your soul to come and try this. Like, you knew immediately. I feel like that is so important to note. I feel like we so many times, right? Like, people will feel like drawn to something, and your soul is screaming yes, but then there are these stories that come in that tell you like, well, that's silly, like, and
Yeah.
it's like, normally, I mean, for me at least, I think a lot of that is like just like voices of authority from childhood, like people in my life who had established had authority in my life as a child, and their opinions about things that would be vocalized so often, right? That you then absorb a lot of that as truth. So, like, my example that popped into my head was like, man, I remember thinking, oh, you're going to go become a yoga teacher. You're going to, oh, you like to meditate, and literally hearing these voices in my head, like sort of like half mocking me. Right.
Right.
So things like that, I just think it's important to note, like, if your soul is calling you towards something, there's a freaking reason for that. And so stop listening to these stories in your head that are just
Mhm.
absorbed from other people. They're not your stuff. Your stuff is the stuff that you feel, that draw that you feel, that's your stuff.
Mhm.
Um and I think it's one of those things that you reconnect with once you, again, you come home to yourself, you start to prioritize yourself in ways. Um, People wonder, oh, why do I have no idea what I need right now as far as self-care? Like, I don't even know. I'm so, I'm so all over the place. I don't even know. Well, yeah, it's just, that's a disconnect that's embedded in there because you stopped listening to yourself long ago, and you start listening, you're in the mode of listening to those stories and those voices that are not your story. So it's like, that's what came up for me. It was just like, like, I'm so glad you did that. Like, you said yes to this, because clearly this is your thing, and clearly there's a lot of great things happening for you now. So that's wonderful.
Yes.
Um, yeah. So let's go further on, the letting go concept, right? Because we committed to talking about, letting go of limiting beliefs, letting go of judgments, emotional blockages, and stuff like that. So we tapped a little bit into limiting beliefs. Feel free to further define that. But the emotional blockages, which obviously are connected, right? Because every single thought that we have in our head is going to elicit an emotion attached to that. And then you feel a certain kind of way about
Mhm.
what is going on around you. And so then you go further, and that's going to dictate how you react to the situation based on how you feel. So I always talk about it from a frame of mind of like taking back your control. Like when
Mhm.
you decide that I am not going to be run by this shit, that's taking back your control and trusting yourself. And that's how it felt to me. So tell me from your perspective, like feel free to redefine any of this. And because obviously I'm no expert, but this is solely based on my own reading, my own, experience in life. So I love to hear just like everybody's side of things.
Yeah. Well, there's so many things I want to say.
It's okay.
With
Take your
self-care,
time.
with self-care, when you start to tune into yourself, when you start to ask yourself, what do I need on a daily basis? Then you start to tune yourself in to the voices that are yours. And you can then differentiate, is this a story that I'm telling myself, or is this the truth? Is this somebody else's opinion, or is this what I actually feel about the situation? And you can start to unravel all of the contradictions in your mind and get to yourself. And so then you can make decisions based on what you actually want for you, for your life, for your family, instead of letting all of these things that have been programmed into your mind for so long run the show. And when you start to tune into your emotions and then you listen to that thought that caused the emotion, you're tuning into your subconscious mind, your unconscious mind, and you're like, I didn't even know I felt that way. I didn't know I thought these things. Where did this thought come from? And then you can choose to either let it go, or does this serve me or not? And if it doesn't serve you, a limiting belief is a thought that doesn't serve you. It limits you. It cuts you off from possibility so that you stay stuck. When you start to identify those, you see how ridiculous these thoughts are that you've been programmed with, and you can let them go and then start to write your own story. And then you start to feel powerful, and you build all this momentum, and you trust yourself more, and you start taking things less personally. When somebody doubts you, you don't bring that into your heart and hold on to it and let that control you. You think, nope, that's what they believe. That's fine. I know who I am. I'm my center of support. I know where I'm headed, and I am choosing to believe in this thing that serves me.
Mm. So beautiful. I think that was like that, probably that one line or phrase that probably most people have heard a million times, right? Let go of that which does not serve you. If it does not serve you, you release it. Um and I think that it's interesting to note that like little phrases like that or concepts or beliefs or whatever, like you're going to embody them and like absorb them when you're ready. So like if, like I just feel like if it's sitting with somebody and it's not resonating right now and it's like almost even a little triggering, well, like, like easier said than friggin' done, Sam, kind of thing, like that kind
Mhm.
of thing. Cause I could literally remember a time where I felt that way.
Me
You
too.
know, I think one of the most blaring examples was when I started to prioritize things were real rough in my early stages of motherhood. I was let go from um my 10 plus year career in publishing when I was 8 months pregnant. So I was like trying to adjust to motherhood at the same time as like adjusting to leaving that like massive part of my life. And it was just it was unexpected. I wasn't mentally prepared for the change. So and just add in a ton of postpartum anxiety, just like tons. So, but when I really made the decision, at first it was, to start prioritizing myself. I threw myself back into yoga. I really like used it as my healing modality. Like I needed it so bad, but I put myself into it from a more of a spiritual perspective than just the physical, which is all that I was really utilizing it for prior to that. Um I started singing again to kind of like have a creative outlet. Like I had all these things that I knew I was doing. And it felt really freaking good at first, but then I hit another block, and that block was guilt because
Yeah.
now I was doing all the things. So I was stepping out of those supposed to that I was telling myself a story or was told and absorbed this story of what as a mother that what that was supposed to look like. So now I'm stepping outside of that because now I'm doing stuff for myself. And the story that I've been told my whole life is that you're supposed to sacrifice your whole shit for your family. Like your personality, your hobbies. Oh, you're going off to sing. Oh, you're going off to do a wine tasting. Like, who the F do you think you are? That's
Mhm.
been like, I've been talking about that a lot lately, that comes in. Who do you think you are? So that was coming in a lot for me, and it was a long time. It's probably at least a good year, maybe 2, that I was doing the things, but I was constantly coming up against that blockage over and over again and having to move through it, and it got easier and easier, but I could never let it go, and I swear I woke up with one morning and finally could understand that very phrase, that concept. If it does not serve you, why are you holding on to it? I woke up
Mhm.
one morning and thought, guilt. How is this serving me? How is this productive for my life? And it also has no, like, it doesn't affect anyone else but me. I'm not sitting here going, "Oh, poor me." Like, I'm not, like, playing the martyr, which is, like, going further into
Mhm.
it, right? Like, if you were gonna go further into it, you would, you know, uh, take that resentment that you feel for feeling the guilt and then make everybody else feel freaking miserable because you feel it, right? Which happens too. But, so right? So you're going down that you could if you're not going down that road, then it's the other way. Let that shit go. It is not productive to you. But I totally understand the concept that it really does take time to kind of, like, really feel ready to do that.
Mhm.
And it's sad because these blockages that we hold on to, these stories that we hold on to, I think the only reason that it's hard to let them go sometimes is because you own them. You, like, walk around and you wear them. It's like a part of who you are. And you even bond over them. Like,
Yeah.
talk, not that I don't think it's important for mothers to talk to each other about the struggles that we all face. I think it's very, very important for anybody to be vulnerable and talk about whatever they're facing and vocalize it. But there's a difference between that and, like, bonding over cheap energy. So we're sitting
Mhm.
here, like, bitching and all the bitching and complaining about, how I can't get any time to myself and this is bullshit. And every time I do it, oh, he's texting me and asking me, and the kids are making me feel guilty and they're crying. And so it's like, then you're infusing it, you're wearing it. It's like
Mhm.
on you. You can't get it off of you. So it's hard. Choose to let that go. So that's what was coming up for me, is like, I know it's easier said than done sometimes. But that's, I think, where what's beautiful is having these actual techniques that you can bring in. Like, you don't have to do it by yourself. Like, I've been talking about that a lot lately too. You don't have to do this by yourself, you know?
Nor should you. Like,
Right.
support has been crucial for my life because
Right.
I've always been into self-help. I've always been reading all the books and everything, but it never landed until, again, after I became a mom and I started listening to podcasts of like this, of people giving me permission to take care of myself.
Right.
And then that's when I started hiring I hired my first coach and then started participating in group programs so that
Right.
I could be around people who gave me permission to feel good instead of doing the normal thing, which is to complain all the time about how hard everything is.
Mhm.
And because that it didn't feel good. And so being around the people who are doing the work, they can show you the tools. You can take those tools that feel right to you. You can set aside the things that don't feel right to you, but you can try them on. And the tools are there to make it easier so that you're not just sitting in your room trying to figure it out. It's like with tapping, we are literally tapping into the limbic system and the nervous system and reprogramming our neural pathways. It
Mm.
reprograms us for success instead of doing that work tediously over a long period of time.
Mm. I love that. Um, and speaking of tapping into our systems and stuff, like, I think a lot of people, or at least I was there, right? Where I don't think for a long time I really understood the connection between, like, mind, body, spirit. Like, I didn't, like, how tapping into a system in your body and how you actually do have control. I think a lot of us also walk around thinking, I don't have any control. I mean, I could take it even further. I think that there are, you know, fields and industries in the world that would choose us to believe that we have no fucking control over what's going on inside of us.
Absolutely.
And that it's
Make lots
totally
of
up
money.
to, right. And that it's totally up to chance. It's totally up to just, whether something's hereditary, whether it's, passed down or not. And that you got it, and you got to get treatment for it and you're going to live with it. And it's like one of those things, even when it comes to mental illness. And I won't, I'm not a medical professional. I have no, no, no authority to sit here and dole out medical advice. However, it really comes back to that same concept that I said before, that you do have control. And there are ways that you can actually just, as long as you commit. I think committing first to change is really probably the first thing that you need to do, and deciding I need to let this shit go.
Mhm.
That's why I wanted to talk about that this month, because I was just like, man, that's like plan B. That's A.
Mhm.
Like that's like step A, is to get to that point where you're committing, like, oh, this is what's holding me back and I am letting it go.
Mhm.
Um so, and you mentioned the nervous system, and it's like it all comes back to that. It really does. I just had a conversation with another or no, it was last week. We talked about the fascial system. So all your connective tissue that's like wrapped around everything. So like all these systems, we walk around and we think about our body like we're just bones and muscles, right? And organs, right? And it's just like we're just a big, there's no connection. And we're not taught that. That's another part of it, right? Like we're not taught that at a young age. We're not taught that this vessel that we're moving through life in, how important it is to take care of, first of all. But then when we take care of it, like that is, we're in control. We're taking back control. Um, so even from the foods that you eat, right? It's simple like that. But also, you know, bringing in these ways that you can actually affect what is going on internally, and then what affect, the nervous system is the perfect place to start, right? Because that's that space between your physical body and what's going on in your mind. It really,
Mhm.
really is. That's all your reactions, all your anything, the next thing that happens is based on how your nervous reaction, or how your nervous system is reacting, literally.
Mhm.
So I think it's beautiful that you pull that in. I really do. Um, yeah. So would you, I'm guess I'm, cause I could talk all day about my own examples, right? Of the things that
Mhm.
I've gotten on in my own life. I'd love to know more about like you and your experience, like ways in which it's helped you, whether it be the tapping, whether it be Reiki, specific to your life, or even like ways in which when you're working with people, that things that come up a lot, that are something that, I always want to go down that road, because I feel like people are looking for a way to connect and to have that, oh, that's me.
Yeah.
I got that.
I work with a lot of people who have been doing a lot of this work, but they still judge themselves. And then they judge themselves for judging themselves. And it's just this like cascade of emotions and judgment and limiting beliefs. And so, what I help people do with tapping is to take that judgment away. Tapping is about reprogramming you for love and acceptance of self. No
Mhm.
matter, it's okay that I feel this way. I love and accept myself anyway. And when you finally program that so that it's natural for you to default to, it's okay that I just did that. I still love and accept myself. I'm not a bad person. I'm not a screw up. It was a mistake. It's fine. Everything is fine. When you can get to that place where you default for love and acceptance, you spend so much less time fighting yourself, battling yourself, beating yourself up. And
Mhm.
that's what I love to use it for with myself and my clients, because I still feel guilt. I still feel shame. I still feel things aren't happening fast enough for me. And when I notice that, noticing it is huge. Once I notice that, then I can turn to tapping right away. It's okay that I feel this way. I don't need to beat myself up for feeling this way. I can then shift into how I want to feel, because what we resist persists. And so when we
Mhm.
can accept the way that we're feeling, then we give ourselves permission to let it go and move on with our day. Because
Totally.
I'm a very emotional person, and like a lot of your listeners, I'm sure. And I used to think that was something wrong with me, and I beat myself up anytime I had a big emotion, whether it was sadness, anger, anxiety, whatever. And now I realize that being emotional is not a negative. It's actually, it can be a superpower when you tune into it and you use your emotions to guide you to where you want to go. Your emotions are showing you where something's not working. And
Yeah.
so this tool is just amazing for working through that stuff and for reprogramming yourself. I love and accept myself anyway.
Mm. It's so important because we go down the friggin' rabbit hole of like, oh, I'm doing that thing again. Like I'm such a piece of shit. Like,
Mhm.
you know,
Yeah.
you just go down it. And one thing leads to another, and then we wonder why we're walking around with like weight just like holding us down
Yeah.
and why we haven't done the thing yet that we want to do. And it's like, yeah, because we do nothing but beat ourselves up. I remember I was really there. Even just a few months back, because I feel like it's important to note too that, like, healing isn't linear, like,
Right.
so you'll get to a point where you're like, "Oh, okay, like, I'm gonna be so fucking kind to myself," right? And then something will happen that will throw you back into a space mentally or emotionally that you revert back to these old tendencies. I always say that. Actually, it was I think we even talked about that in the when I hopped on that workshop with you because I had experienced something pertaining to the topic, pertaining to, family members who suffer from alcoholism. Um and like an occurrence that happened pertaining to that put me back into such a state that, and these things are going to happen. So like all these tendencies that we normally, we've been battling or we've been trying
Mhm.
to release, they might resurface again, and that's okay. That's why we say healing isn't linear. You're
Yes.
so I think it's important to note, yeah, that you're not going to like it's not a cure all. Like we're not going to like wipe it away, but these are techniques so that you can move through them like more fluidly and you can
Mhm.
be like with yourself while you're doing it and be on your own side even as you're feeling it. Because well, yeah, I think probably one of the biggest things is to avoid going down that rabbit hole. You're going to feel the things, like it's going to
Yeah.
happen because stress happens, right? Because life happens. So you're going to feel all the things, but we just can't allow ourselves to have it be all this compounded negativity. It's so important. Even something that happened that I think it's like the silliest example. Today, I quote lost a client today, a yoga client. I don't even think that's like doesn't even sound like the right way to say it because I don't feel like a loss. You know what I mean? But I noted when it was happening, and it's totally based on schedule, you know what I mean? Like, it's not, like, anything pertaining to me, and I'm sure that she wishes that she could keep it exactly the way it is, but I just had that moment today where I was like, "Whoa." Like, if I could rewind right now, I would be finding all kinds of fucking reasons why this is my fault, even though this is, like, schedule based. This
Yeah.
is, like, not this is not has nothing to do with my abilities. It has nothing to do with my skills or my, my me at all. It literally has to do with like a calendar. And so, but I do remember I could just clearly feel it in my bones right now. Just remember a time where I would come up with every reason why and go down that rabbit hole of, oh, well, here I am. Now I only have XYZ amount of clients and my goal was to have this many and now I don't. And why is that? Why am I not trying hard enough? What am I doing that I should, what am I not doing? That whole thing. Um, so I think that it's important to note, yeah, like you have to have these mechanisms in place so that you can move through these stressful moments with a little bit more grace. Give yourself that grace. Give yourself that space to just be instead of like, how often do we just like pick up the bat? Like it's all on us. Like, oh, it's because I didn't do it. It's
Mhm.
because of this aspect of your personality. That's what got you here, kind of thing. And I think that potentially in itself, that tendency could be based on a learned behavior, right? Or,
Absolutely.
like you absorb that. And I think that we're coming into a space now, I'm sure you can relate and I'm sure you agree. Like we're coming into a space where there's a massive awakening happening right now.
Yes.
Like people
Hallelujah.
are, yeah, hallelujah. Like, I mean, seriously, I mean, if you ask me, it's like I said it, not have I been a real cheerleader for this whole pandemic situation? No, obviously not. But when it first happened, when everything went down, it's the first thing I said was like, everybody is going to go home. They're going to sit down and they're going to do some freaking thinking. And they're going to pause and they're finally going to pause and they're finally going to rest and be still and allow these emotions that you're not really allowing to flow through you, and these thoughts that you're not really allowing to unfold and flourish. And you actually take the time to allow it to happen. So anyway, as far as, sort of this awakening right now, people are coming to this space of, oh, like I I don't have to live like this anymore. There's another way. And I just think it's like this like beautiful thing. It could be something as small as that or something big like, oh, I'm going to go do the thing. Like, or reconnecting to their self. So, have you experienced that at all? Like, whether it's just with people around you, your tribe, your clients, whatever, that people are sort of like waking up as of lately?
I think there's a lot of evidence that people are waking up. And what happens is it gets really hard at first when you start hearing what you've been thinking about yourself, when you start noticing these patterns and your emotions are heavy and they're so strong and they're so powerful. And we tend to make that mean that we've done something wrong, that we're being punished, that we aren't growing the right way. But working through that pain is a key part of the process. So feeling badly is not another reason to judge yourself. It's just proof that you are getting real with yourself and identifying the things that you're ready to let go of.
Mm,
Because we tend to cling to everything negative, like you were saying in your example, losing that client. Like you can make up all these negative stories and you cling to them. But then if somebody says something really positive about you, you're like, oh, they probably didn't mean it. I'm going to
mm,
cling to these judgments over here. It's just been a habitual pattern to cling to all that negativity.
yeah.
And people are starting to wake up and realize that's not working for me. Being busy all the time isn't working for me. Giving myself away all the time, having no boundaries isn't working for me. And I think it's really exciting.
Yeah.
And it looks like things are falling apart. That's what I wanted to get at. Like things feel like they're falling apart at first, but they're falling into place. You are losing the things that aren't serving you so that you can rebuild from a place that you choose. You get to choose what you're going to do next.
Yeah. It does. It absolutely feels hectic when it's happening, for sure. It feels like a major shift. Well, think of it. I just said this to someone the other day, think of it like an earthquake. Everything is just like quaking below you and it's going to be uncomfortable, but it's not going to last forever. And it's going to, present an entirely new landscape. And it's not, and it, like you said, you get to start again. You get to actually choose. You get to decide a new path. Um, and I think it's important to note. And I just remembered too, because that's where I was going. I kind of lost my track for a second, but it was where I was going with the whole like awakening. People coming to a lot of realizations lately, whether we call it an awakening, whether we call it an ascension, whatever we want to call it, right? It's just whatever you're comfortable with. Um, and this is not to like poo poo like past generations or anything, because like this is evolution, like this is the way
Mhm.
that it goes, right? This is it, it's happening. But I think that negativity that we attach to, that we're talking about right now, it's unfortunate, but that was fed to us
Yeah.
because the generations before us were, first of all, there was some hard shit that they went through. So you got to like take that shit into account. So you have not only sort of like this negative headspace that they were in and that you were living in, and you've absorbed all of that. Then you have the fact that there was so much, I feel like there was so much like bonding over like trauma bonding, like
Yes.
whose life is harder, type
Yes.
of thing. So it's almost like if my life is harder, I'm actually better than you somehow, or I've succeeded because I'm struggling more than you're struggling. So that's how you really absorb negativity, and that's why it feels almost like natural to live in that space, and so unnatural to absorb that amazing, energy. Yes, so many of us are uncomfortable when we get a
Mhm.
compliment, man, or where, um yeah, exactly. Whether it's good positive feedback in any way, and you'll find a way to discredit it. And it's really sad. So I think that's a good point too. It's like the next time that either if there's somebody listening thinking like, how do I put this into practice? Yeah, like the next time that either somebody, there's that cheap bonding going on, or like that tit for tat, or like that one upping each other on whose life is harder. Notice it, just become aware of it happening, and maybe if it feels okay to you, like just choose to withdraw from that kind of, or change the subject or whatever it is. And then the other concept, right, of like um trying to trying to diffuse like some positive feedback when you get it. It might be uncomfortable. Like, I got a compliment the other day. I went out with my friend, and we went out in Jersey City, or not that you would know where that is, but that's the city over here. And we basically, like, we were going out, and I put a dress on for the first time in like a million years, and I got one of his friends like complimented me, and I was just like, oh, like, a whole story came out of my mouth. I don't know how to dress anymore because now they got all these clothes that are like the 90s coming back, and I grew up in the 90s, and I'm not allowed to wear that stuff because it's like it doesn't make any sense, but I don't want to wear mom clothes. Like, there's like a whole
Mhm.
story that needed to come out of my mouth instead of just saying thank you. Thank
Yeah.
you. Like, are you, and I totally noticed it while it was happening. I couldn't stop it. It was already happening. But it's just a small example of like when those things are happening. Again, it's just a simple pause, acknowledgement. Don't beat yourself up. Don't go down the other route. Just become aware of it. And again, it's like the other way. We choose to release that. No, thank you. I am awesome.
Yeah.
I am actually awesome. Thank you. Yeah, so yeah, let me know if there's anything else that's coming up for you here.
Well, because there are multiple stages of awareness. First, it's noticing when you're doing a behavior that's not serving you. And you can say, man, I did that. I
Mm,
notice it. I want to change that. Then the second stage is when you're in it, you notice that you're doing it. That's progress to notice when you're in it. And then the third stage of awareness is knowing when it's coming so that you can make a different choice and not repeat that behavior. So
mm,
just because you have repeated, even though you've become aware of it and you've still repeated it, that doesn't mean that you've screwed everything up. That's an important piece of the journey is the
mm.
awareness while it's happening.
Oh, wow,
Um,
that's good. That's really good. I actually haven't heard it framed that way yet, and I love that. The fact that, that's the answer to not going down the rabbit hole of, "Oh, well, why did I screw that up again? Why did here I am again. Why am I doing the same thing over again?" That's how you don't go down the rabbit hole. You just
mhm,
kind of cut yourself off right there. I love that.
mhm.
Wonderful.
And one of the things that I love about tapping is that, like, all humans are technology. Our mind, our body, our spirit working together, we are technology. And I think
Mhm.
of tapping as a hack for human technology because when you identify this thing that you want to change, you can use tapping to identify core memories that are tied to that. You can identify the different emotions that are tied to that, the different triggers that are tied to that. And then you can reprogram your brain for the thing that you desire instead of, like, there's always layers, like you said, it's cyclical, and we repeat these patterns because we're ready for the deeper lesson. But with tapping, you can move through it so much more quickly because
Mm.
it's a hack for human technology.
Hmm. I need this in my life. We're gonna have to work this out.
Yeah.
Because believe it or not, I have not uh stepped into actually physically doing it, and it's like it's on my to-do list. Like, it's same thing. Like, I'm being called to, cuz where I'm just really grateful that I have like this group of healers that are just sort of like showing up in my life, and that's part of why this show is happening. But I fully, it is not lost on me that when this stuff shows up, it's like, hey, like, this is an option for you to incorporate into your own life. And yeah, I'm just like the sample queen over here of like just dabbling. And it's true because it's like, here I am, sort of self-care motivator over here, right? And if I could be the one who decides actively and commits to embodying that like fully, especially as a mother of like two really small children, if I could set the tone for other mothers to do that, then here I am, here and now. That'll be me. If that's the only thing that I do, right? Is to just set the tone, because I think it's important to note, not even just for moms, but for women. I think that it's important to note, like, you come to these like areas where you need to work on yourself. We as women have like a gift where, we're called like, crazy bitches, or like overly emotional, or like too hormonal, or whatever it is. But it's not that at all. It's a gift. We actually have so much power and so much knowledge in our ability to feel our feelings.
Hmm.
So many of us are told growing up that, like, we're too emotional or too overly sensitive. Yeah, and especially for people like me and you, who are highly sensitive people, right? Like, who are literally. But it's interesting to note too that there's a reason that me and you are here sharing this message together right now, because we're able to feel all those feelings. We have more, emotions popping up when in 1 minute than maybe potentially some other people. Those sensitivity moments are opportunities to learn, to grow. So then we have this, potential draw or calling to speak about these learnings, to speak about these things that we're noticing. And to some that might seem weird, but it's not. It's literally how we're going to continue to evolve, especially, like I said, for other women. I think it's important to kind of pave that path. No, you are allowed to talk about
Yeah.
these things. We are allowed to go deep, and it's not weird. And it's not a waste of time. It's actually potentially the most, the best way that you can spend your time is by learning from these little things that are popping up for you. Um, so yeah, I figure we could go into like quickly go into like the mom side of it in that essence, because I know that you're a single mom,
Hmm.
which and a caregiver, which can't be easy, right? In a single household. So I'm sure that there are ways that this stuff has helped you kind of move through that. I know that you have your own past, things that you had to deal with as well. So tell us, in your own way, if there's something that you want to share as far as other people that might be dealing with a similar thing, perhaps.
I used to fight myself so much, and I had anxiety. I was on medication for anxiety for over a decade. And I, like you had talked earlier about the mind body connection, like we were not taught about that at all. And so I was so happy just taking a pill for anxiety and then pretending like I had no responsibility over the way that I felt.
Mm,
And when I started connecting in, I learned how much responsibility I do have, how much power I have, and that if I could just simply stop fighting myself, my quality of life goes up incredibly, because we're
mhm.
not spending so much time beating ourselves up, doubting ourselves, saying I can't. We're not passing on opportunities because we don't think that we're good enough, or that we have permission to do it because our job is over here to take care of our families. Like,
Mhm.
I've worked really hard to identify the things that I actually want in my life and to program myself to believe that I can do it. Because my
Mm.
limiting belief was always, I don't have permission. Nobody's giving me permission. I can't do it. And so I stayed in the exact same place. And to change that, to realize how powerful you are, and being emotional is not weakness, it is your superpower. It
Mm.
can really serve you in so many ways if you stop hiding from yourself. And I get that it's scary. I've been there. I've done all the avoidance. It's uncomfortable. But when you learn to sit in the discomfort, you realize there's nothing that you can't handle.
Yeah.
Nothing. Because
Yeah.
we're afraid to feel our emotions. That's truly the fear that we're feeling when we say I can't do this, I can't do that, I can't have this. It's because we're afraid of the way we're afraid it might make us feel.
Mhm. Yeah, afraid of that judgment that might come in from an external source and how that's gonna make us feel
Hmm.
at the end of the day. So much of it, right, comes back to, whether it's judgment from external or just simply, which is based on self-love, based on reconnecting with that. But we can't skip steps before. I was just talking about this with somebody. It's like, I think that my piece, as far as what I like to offer as a coach, as a mentor, is like, I'm in that beginning stage because we can't skip steps. We have to incorporate modes of self-care so that we can become self-aware of the things that not only we might not even know that we're pushing down and we're not addressing, then we can go from there to self-love. Because it's like, and I always like to be so clear about that because I know that there's so much out there, there's just like these buzzwords flying around, self-care, self-love, blah blah blah, like la la la. But and I like to just make sure it's noted that, like, yeah, no, you're not going to just make a decision to wake up and love yourself more. You can't skip steps. You have to actually do the work.
Mhm.
And it doesn't have to be daunting, and it doesn't have to be like this massive production either, but it does have to be there because it's the only way that we can actually live fulfilled. It's the only way that we can even know what we really, really want.
Mhm.
You're in that 9 to 5, that grind, that hustle, whatever it is that you're doing with your life, or just plugging away as mommy, just like thinking this is it. And it's like, that there's something more, but you don't know what that is. Well, that's where that little, like, that's where that self connection has to come in.
Mhm.
We have to remember because we put all this stuff on a shelf, we forget about it for a long time, and we have to come back to it. Um, so that's amazing. And I give you, like, again, I give you so much credit for just being like, single mom taking care of your own mother. It's a beautiful thing, I'm sure, to have like 3 generations in the house and just like all that feminine energy.
Yeah.
That's a lot. That's a lot. But that's good stuff though. That's good stuff. There's power there. I love it.
Absolutely.
So aside from tapping, and I guess potentially Reiki too is something that we didn't touch on as much. But like, what are your other self care? Like, you were talking about how self care, Monday is your self care day.
Yeah.
What are your inclusive of that? What are your other, like, non-negotiable self care practices? Like things that have to happen for you to feel whole.
I need to get outside.
Mm,
I
yeah.
need to be outside. And even in the winter, like I'm really glad that my daughter gets me outside because I don't really like the cold, but she makes me go out there and I'm always so grateful because being in the trees, being by birds, being by just outside is crucial for me. Dancing is another big one. And like I think back to the things that I loved doing as a kid, and that was reading, dancing, being outside, using my imagination, those things. Like those are my self-care practices now that are the most potent for me.
Hmm.
And I also love fascia blasting. I think that's really important for the body.
Mm.
And hot showers, hot baths, things like that.
So good, so good. And I think, oh God, just you hitting on that point. I think that that's like probably one of the most important points of this whole interview is like the things that you did as a kid, those can be your self-care practices now.
Yes.
Like, isn't that so true? Like, I mean, with the singing for me, I was probably writing songs and singing, moving the writing songs, yes, probably from like 8 years old, but probably before that, like moving the couches out of the way in the living room when
Yeah.
nobody was home and blasting my boombox. I think it was like, it wasn't even like at the time, like it wasn't even like the boombox at the time. It was like the boombox, like
Oh
with the
yeah.
handle on top. Oh, wow. But yeah, I remember, my cassette tapes, like, all very, very meticulously labeled. Um, and so into the music, and it almost came innately, like I said, in one of the most stressful times in my life. It almost was like it seemed almost like a weird time to incorporate it, of course. That was the story I was telling myself. This is just, why would I do this now? But it's that then that you need it the most,
Mhm.
and they could be your routine self-care, or it could be, a mode of self-soothing, and that's inclusive in self-care, and that's good too. Um, I think that's so important to remember who you were as a kid. Like,
Yeah.
who talk about limiting beliefs. Who said that we have to just like, boop, you're an adult, all that shit goes away?
Yeah,
Like,
we're believing being an adult sucks.
yeah,
No, being an adult is awesome.
yeah, because
If
you
you
can do
allow it to
all
be.
the things now.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can keep all those things and then do more of them. It's just and you
Yes.
get to decide. Um, I think that, yeah, there's something to be said for that of like letting go of that belief that like we can't just have this like play in our lives, this
Mhm.
sort of relaxed, carefree and pleasure. Even if you're
Yes.
doing
Pleasure.
something that is literally just for the friggin' pleasure of it. Like
Yes.
do it. Like, it is okay to do that. It's okay to enjoy your damn life. That's
Yes.
what we're here for.
Yes.
It's crazy. All right, very good. I love this so much. I wanna thank you for joining me. I mean, this is such a juicy, amazing conversation. I can't wait to re-listen because I do that with all my episodes. I absolutely listen to my own podcast because it just fills me with delight and just so much good knowledge. But before I let you go, let us know like what you have going on right now. Like, do you have any more workshops coming up? I know you have that series that you do called Soul Shivers, which is wonderful. Just let us know what's going on and where we can find you.
Yes. Well, the Soul Shivers this month is on April 29th. It's a Thursday, and the topic is unfuck yourself, change the way you interact with your pain, which
Mm,
is a lot of what I was mentioning here. Yeah,
yeah,
when you change the way you interact with those emotions, you gain so much control over your life. You can also work with me one-on-one. You can find me on lovewhit.com or lovewhit on Facebook and follow me. And yeah.
perfect. Yeah, and I'll get all that information in the notes so people can click away and find you. Yeah, connect with Whitney because she's a beautiful soul and she's got a lot to offer this world, and especially if you're in the realm of, again, like we were saying before, right? Like, you don't have to do this alone. Like, it feels daunting to kind of like, again, all this release that we're talking about, things that you're clinging to, that you're
Mhm.
embodying and that you're wearing and walking around with. Yeah, of course it's not easy, but you don't have to do it alone.
Yeah.
We're here for you.
Sometimes you
um
just need that gentle reminder to, it's okay. It's okay that you feel that way. That's
yeah,
huge.
you need the nudge. I keep been saying that lately. I'm not here to judge you, I'm just here to nudge you. Like,
Oh, I love that.
I just wanna give you a little push, plant a little seed in the back of your head, and then just see what happens. Like, I'm not, because once you get into that sort of, like, forcing, it's like, then people feel judged, and we don't want that. That we want to enact the complete opposite. We want you to
Mhm.
love yourself
Yes.
fully. So, that's what we're here for all day. Alright, very good. It's been amazing. Thank you again.
Thank you.
So amazing. I'm going to end our broadcast, but yeah, if you're watching this and you loved it, please share and please subscribe on YouTube. Self-care is my job, and you could go on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or Google Podcasts, probably some other platforms in there as well for the podcast, for the audio, and you could follow there as well. Would be amazing. Thank you everyone. We'll see you soon.
Thank you.